Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be taking a look at a vintage workshop manual
Oh, wow.
from October 1991. And
Yeah.
we're going to be taking a deep dive into Perkins 3.152 series diesel engines.
Very cool.
Yeah. So these engines, as you might know, were really popular for a lot of different applications.
Yeah, they were workhorses, particularly in agricultural and industrial applications.
Exactly.
They were known for their simplicity and reliability.
Yeah. So this manual is going to give us kind of a cool snapshot of how mechanics back in the day, kept these things running.
Yeah, this was before, the internet and all that. They relied on these manuals.
Yeah, they really had to know their stuff.
They did.
So this manual covers a whole range of models.
Okay.
You've got your 3.152, your D3.152, and it even gets into the 3HD46, which is a marine engine.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's really quite comprehensive. But before we get into, all the nuts and bolts and the nitty-gritty details, the manual actually starts off with a whole section on engine identification.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah, it might seem kind of basic, but
Yeah.
it makes you realize how important it was to get that right.
Absolutely, especially back then.
Yeah.
You couldn't just, Google the part number or, look it up on a website.
Right.
You had to be absolutely sure you had the correct engine before you even thought about ordering parts.
Exactly. And imagine if you're a mechanic
Yeah.
out in the field.
Right?
You don't have time to be messing around with the wrong parts.
Absolutely. Downtime was a big deal.
Exactly.
Time is money and all that.
Yeah. So the manual actually tells you exactly where to find the engine number.
Okay.
It's on a machine pad on the right side of the cylinder block.
Gotcha.
So they really wanted to make sure you had the right engine.
It's interesting how much emphasis they put on that.
Yeah.
Really highlights the difference between then and now.
Right. So we've got the right engine identified.
Okay.
What's next? Let's talk about safety.
All right.
So I was flipping through this section, and some of the precautions they list seem kind of obvious now.
Oh, I've been...
Back then, maybe not so much.
Right.
For example, they warn against wearing loose clothing near moving engine parts.
Yeah.
It seems like common sense, right?
Of course. Yeah. But, back then, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
Safety standards change over time.
Right.
What might have been okay back then is definitely not okay now.
Exactly. And this brings us to something particularly interesting.
Okay.
A section on asbestos joints.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So back in 1991, the dangers of asbestos weren't as widely known as they are today.
Right.
But the manual does advise mechanics to dampen the asbestos with water to prevent dust and to dispose of it properly.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder of how far we've come in terms of workplace safety.
Absolutely. We take those things for granted now, but back then, it was
Yeah.
a different story.
Right. Now, before we dive into the technical stuff, let's talk about all the different 3.152 variations. We see designations like D for direct injection.
Right.
But what about all those other numbers and letters?
Yeah, what do they all mean?
Exactly.
So basically, think of it as a code.
Okay.
Each combination represents a specific engine configuration or a power output.
So like a whole family of engines.
Exactly. You got your 3.152, your D3.152, T3.152, each one tailored for a specific job.
I see.
What's really interesting is the manual actually explicitly states that not all parts shown in the manual
Okay.
are necessarily correct for your specific engine.
Oh, wow.
So even within the 3.152 family, there's a lot of variation.
Yeah, so you really had to rely on this manual for guidance.
Absolutely. That wasn't a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right. Okay. Are you ready to get into some of the technical details?
Let's do it.
All right. So this engine is a 4-stroke direct injection diesel engine with 3 cylinders.
Okay.
Pretty standard stuff.
Yeah.
But one thing that I found kind of intriguing was the lubrication system.
Okay.
It uses both pressure and splash lubrication. Yeah. So it's kind of a clever way to make sure everything stays oiled.
Yeah. Pressure lubrication takes care of the high-stress areas like the crankshaft.
Right.
And then splash lubrication makes sure that the other parts get their share of oil.
It's like a 2-pronged approach.
Exactly.
And then there's the emphasis on torque.
Okay.
Every bolt, every nut.
Yeah.
They all have specific torque values listed in the manual.
Wow, that's pretty precise.
Yeah.
And that was crucial back then.
Yeah.
Imagine tightening a cylinder head bolt just a little bit too much.
Oh, yeah.
You could damage the engine.
Right.
So mechanics back then, they used torque wrenches
Uh-huh.
to apply the exact amount of force to make sure everything was assembled correctly.
It was a science.
It was.
Yeah. And speaking of precision, one of the most detailed procedures in the manual
Yeah.
is for removing the cylinder head.
Okay.
It's a step-by-step process, and they sprinkle warnings about handling that asbestos gasket throughout.
Oh, right, of course.
Yeah, so it's a pretty involved procedure.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And it really highlights the expertise of the mechanics who worked on these engines.
Yeah, they didn't have fancy computer diagnostics back then.
Nope.
They had to rely on their knowledge and this manual.
Exactly.
It's pretty impressive.
It is. Okay, before we move on to other parts of the engine,
Okay.
let's take a moment to appreciate the visuals in this manual.
Yeah.
It's not just text.
Right.
There are photos, diagrams, exploded views of components like the cylinder head.
Those visuals must have been so helpful,
Oh, absolutely.
especially for something as complex as a cylinder head.
Right. Imagine trying to reassemble that without a visual guide.
Oh, it would be a nightmare.
It would be like a jigsaw puzzle with no picture on the box.
Exactly.
So these diagrams were really invaluable for mechanics.
Yeah, they really demystified the engine's inner workings.
Right. So we've covered engine identification, safety variations,
Yeah.
technical specs, and even the importance of visuals.
That's a lot already.
It is.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much information they managed to pack into this manual.
It really is.
And we're just getting started.
There's so much more to explore.
Well, then let's keep diving.
I'm ready when you are.
Okay, so let's dig a little deeper into this engine's inner workings.
Right.
And I noticed this manual dedicates a whole section to the fuel injection system,
Okay.
specifically the CAV DPA distributor type pump.
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty intricate piece of machinery.
Yeah, so this is basically the heart of the fuel system, right?
Yeah, you could say that it's the brain, really.
Okay.
It precisely meters the fuel to each cylinder,
Right.
ensuring efficient combustion.
It's pretty amazing how this technology has come a long way since then.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, today we have common rail diesel systems that are electronically controlled.
Right.
Super precise.
Yeah.
But back then, mechanics had to actually manually adjust the timing of this pump
Wow.
using specialized tools.
Yeah, it required a deep understanding of the engine's mechanics.
Yeah.
And a very steady hand.
Absolutely.
The manual actually has a very detailed step-by-step procedure for this.
Oh, wow. Emphasizing the importance of meticulous maintenance.
So we've got the fuel pump.
Okay.
What about getting that fuel into the cylinders?
Right. Well, that's where the atomizers come in.
The atomizers?
Yeah, essentially the nozzles that spray the fuel into the combustion chambers.
Gotcha.
The manual actually provides a really handy chart
Oh, okay.
that lists the different atomizer codes
Okay.
and their corresponding pressure settings.
So again, making it clear that you had to choose the right atomizer for your specific engine.
Absolutely. I mean, the wrong atomizer could lead to, poor combustion,
Right.
reduced power,
Right.
even increased emissions.
It's all about getting that right mix of fuel and air.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance.
Okay, speaking of balance, another critical aspect covered in this manual is the engine's cooling system.
Right. Of course, diesel engines generate a lot of heat,
A lot of heat.
so keeping them cool is essential.
Absolutely. So the manual goes through everything.
Okay.
From the water pump, thermostat radiator, fan belt. Yeah, it even explains how to check the fan belt tension.
Really?
Something that's still relevant today, even with modern engines. Preventative maintenance is key.
Right.
Regular checks like that can help prevent overheating and extend the life of your engine.
It's like getting regular checkups at the doctor.
Exactly. A little bit of care goes a long way.
That's a great analogy.
Okay.
Speaking of keeping things running smoothly, let's talk about the lubrication system.
Okay.
We mentioned earlier, this engine uses both pressure and splash lubrication.
Right.
The manual actually has a great diagram
Oh, cool.
that shows how the oil flows through the engine,
Nice.
from the pump to the filter to all the different moving parts.
It's like the engine's circulatory system.
Yeah, keeping everything lubricated and wear-free.
Exactly.
Now, back in 1991, they recommended changing the oil every 50 hours for agricultural engines and 100 hours for industrial engines.
Wow, that's pretty frequent.
It is, but today we have much longer oil change intervals,
Right.
thanks to advancements in oil technology and engine design.
Yeah, but the core principle remains the same. Regular oil changes are essential
Right,
for engine health.
absolutely. And this manual doesn't just tell you when to change the oil.
Okay.
It actually walks you through the entire process, step by step.
It's like having a mechanic by your side.
Exactly, guiding you through every step.
That's cool.
Okay, now let's talk about the heart of the engine, the crankshaft.
Right.
This is the component that basically converts that up and down motion of the pistons
Yeah.
into rotational force.
Right.
And supporting that crankshaft are the main bearings.
Okay.
So the manual goes into a lot of detail about these components.
All right.
Explains how to inspect them, remove them, install them, even explains how to measure crankshaft journal wear.
Oh, wow.
using a micrometer.
Very precise.
Very precise. They really didn't mess around when it came to making sure these engines were in top shape.
No, they didn't. They even specified the torque values for tightening the main bearing cap screws. I mean, getting that right is critical for preventing damage to the bearings and ensuring the crankshaft spins smoothly.
It's amazing how much engineering went into these seemingly simple engines.
Absolutely. Every detail was carefully considered.
Okay, and speaking of details,
Yeah.
the manual also covers the crankshaft rear end oil seal,
Okay.
which is pretty important because nobody wants oil dripping everywhere.
Right.
So this seal prevents oil leaks from the back of the engine.
Gotcha.
And they actually describe two types of seals,
Oh, okay.
a rope seal and a lip seal.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to see how designs have changed over time.
It is, and for each type, there are specific installation instructions to ensure a proper seal and prevent those dreaded oil leaks.
Nobody wants those. All right, so we've got the crankshaft and bearings spinning smoothly.
Okay.
Now let's talk about what keeps those pistons moving, the timing case and drive.
Ah, yes. This is where things get really intricate.
Okay.
The timing system is responsible for synchronizing the movement of the engine's valves.
Right. The pistons.
So getting the timing just right is essential
Absolutely.
for efficient combustion and optimal power output.
It's all about timing.
It is. Okay, so I can see why they dedicate a whole section to this.
Right.
The manual goes through removing and installing the timing case
Okay.
and even setting the valve timing using specialized tools.
It's a complex process that requires a deep understanding of how the engine operates.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to think that mechanics used to do all this manually.
With incredible precision.
They did. It's really impressive.
It is, speaking of precision, the manual also has detailed instructions
Yeah.
for timing the fuel injection pumps.
Right.
We talked about CIV, DPA pump earlier, but it also covers standardine pumps.
Oh, wow. So different types of pumps.
Different types of pumps.
Interesting.
So mechanics back then had to be familiar with, different systems and approaches.
Right. It wasn't just one size fits all.
Exactly. Okay, so we've got fuel, we've got air,
Mm.
lubrication timing.
The electrical system. We can't forget about that.
Of course not.
Right.
It's
So the manual covers both the alternator,
okay.
which generates electricity, and the starter motor,
Right.
which gets the engine turning over.
Gotcha.
They even explain how to test these components,
Mm-hmm.
adjust the drive belt tension,
Okay.
even replace the brushes in the starter motor.
Wow, that's pretty in-depth.
Very hands-on.
Yeah, back then mechanics had to be a lot more resourceful.
Right.
Using basic tools like multimeters and test lamps.
Yeah, to diagnose and repair electrical problems.
Yeah, a far cry from today's computer-aided diagnostics.
It is, but the manual does include a very helpful tool that is still relevant today,
Oh, okay. What's that?
a fault diagnosis chart.
Oh, cool.
So this chart lists common engine problems
Okay.
and their possible causes.
So it's like a troubleshooting guide.
Exactly. It's like a detective's guide to engine woes.
I like that.
It's amazing how much practical information they packed into this manual.
It really is a testament to the ingenuity of those engineers and mechanics.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to the top end of the engine,
Right.
the cylinder head.
Okay.
So this is where combustion happens.
Right.
It's a pretty critical part.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the manual goes into great detail about removing and installing the cylinder head,
Okay.
including precautions for handling that asbestos head gasket we talked about earlier.
Right. Of course.
It also covers overhauling the cylinder head,
Okay.
which involves inspecting and reconditioning the valves and valve seats.
Interesting. So it's not just about replacing parts, it's about restoring them
Exactly.
to proper working order.
Yeah, mechanics had to be skilled in using specialized tools to grind the valve faces and seats, ensuring a tight seal.
Right, to prevent compression loss.
Exactly.
It's fascinating how much care and precision went into maintaining these engines.
It really is. It was an art form.
It was, and speaking of precision,
Yeah.
the manual also explains how to check the valve guides for wear, which is important for preventing oil consumption
Right.
and maintaining engine performance.
It's amazing how much they packed into this one manual.
I know, it's incredible.
We've covered so much already.
We have.
The fuel system, cooling system, lubrication system, timing, electrical system, and now the cylinder head.
What else could there be?
Well, hold on tight, because we're about to dive into the pistons and connecting rods.
Oh, wow. The workhorses that drive the crankshaft.
Exactly. Yeah, the pistons and connecting rods, they're what really make this whole engine go.
Absolutely.
So I'm guessing this manual has a lot to say about them.
It does. It goes into quite a bit of detail about how to remove them, inspect them, and of course, install them.
Okay.
And there's even a section on how to check for wear and install new piston rings.
Piston rings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, those metal rings that help seal the combustion chamber and prevent oil from leaking in.
Oh, right, of course.
So it's not just about putting the parts back together. You got to make sure they're in good shape, too.
Right. It's all about making sure everything is functioning properly.
Exactly. And there's this interesting bit about fitting different types of piston rings.
Okay.
These things called laminated compression rings.
Laminated.
Yeah, they were pretty common back then. And they were designed to, you know, create a good seal, but also minimize friction.
So it's like they were trying to balance those two things.
Yeah, you gotta have a good seal, but you don't want too much friction.
Makes sense.
And it's amazing how much thought went into even these tiny components.
It really is.
And the manual doesn't stop there. It goes on to explain how to fit the whole piston and connecting rod assembly to the cylinder block.
So like the whole shebang.
Yeah, the whole thing. You got to carefully align the piston rings, lubricate the bearings, and then tighten those connecting rod nuts to a specific torque.
So again, precision is key here.
Absolutely. Can't just crank those down willy-nilly.
Right. You could really mess things up.
Exactly. And once you've got that all done, the manual walks you through checking something called the piston protrusion height.
Piston protrusion height.
Yeah, it sounds complicated, but it's basically making sure that the piston is positioned correctly within the cylinder.
Gotcha. So it's all about making sure everything is lined up just right.
Exactly, because if it's not, you're going to have problems with compression and engine performance.
Makes sense. It's amazing how everything has to be just so for these engines to run smoothly.
Yeah, it's a bit like a symphony orchestra. Everything has to be in sync.
Okay, so we've talked about pistons and connecting rods.
Yep.
What about the cylinder block itself?
I guess the cylinder block.
Kind of the foundation of the whole engine.
Exactly. It's like the backbone, and then you've got the cylinder liners that fit inside.
Cylinder liners.
Yeah, they're like sleeves that provide a smooth surface for the pistons to move against.
So the cylinder liners are what the pistons actually slide up and down in.
Right. They're kind of like the walls of the combustion chamber.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the manual explains the difference between plain and flanged cylinder liners and how to remove them, inspect them, and install them.
So there's a lot to know about those liners.
There is, and it even explains how to measure the cylinder liner protrusion height.
Liner protrusion height.
Yeah, making sure that they're seated correctly within the block.
So again, it's all about getting that precise measurement.
Exactly. Every millimeter counts.
Wow. They really didn't cut any corners back then.
Nope, they were thorough.
And for engines with flanged cylinder liners, the manual says you got to use shims to get the correct liner height.
Right. Shims are like these thin metal spacers that you use to adjust the position of the liner.
Oh, okay. So it's like fine-tuning the fit.
Exactly. And the manual actually provides a table that lists different shim thicknesses and their corresponding liner protrusion heights.
So you can just look up the right shim thickness.
Yep. Makes it easy for the mechanic to get it just right.
That's pretty handy. This whole manual is like a treasure trove of information.
It really is. It's amazing how much detail they packed into it.
Yeah, we've covered so much ground.
We have engine identification safety precautions, all the different engine variations, technical specifications, how to remove and install components, the importance of visuals, and even the use of specialized tools.
It's been quite a journey.
It has a real deep dive into the world of the Perkins 3.152.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? Why should you care about this old manual?
Well, for one thing, it gives you a glimpse into a different era of engineering.
Yeah.
Back when engines were built to last and mechanics had to have a real deep understanding of how they worked.
It's like comparing a classic car to a modern electric vehicle.
Exactly. Both get you from point A to point B, but the experience is totally different.
Right. And understanding how these older engines worked can give you a deeper appreciation for the technology we have today.
Absolutely. It's like tracing the roots of an invention, seeing how it's evolved over time.
Yeah, and maybe this deep dive has even sparked your curiosity to learn more about engines.
Or maybe even tinker with one yourself.
Who knows? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Head over to our website or social media.
Yeah, let us know what stood out to you, what surprised you, what questions you still have.
And be sure to join us next time for another fascinating deep dive into the world of knowledge.
We'll see you then.